we must dwell. Get your hustle on and that wealth build. From the dirt to the gold, every story's untold. Cash flow Savannah, where ambition takes hold. Started with $1, stretched it to a mile. Every setback just a set up for style.
Welcome to Cashless Savannah podcast. Chandler, how are you today? You doing all right?
Yeah, doing good. It's getting busy.
It is, yes. Well, I don't know if we ever have a slow period, but it's definitely getting busy. Real estate does not stop. You hear about the market going up and down. There's always something new.
Yeah, no doubt, for sure. So Labor Day weekend, everybody likes to travel on the 3-day weekend.
Yes, and everyone likes to put in maintenance requests as well. So fun.
Yeah, that's real estate for you, especially when you manage.
That's right. That is exactly what you want a property manager. Well, today on the episode, we have an amazing special guest. He's a very good friend of our real estate community here in Savannah. As you all probably know, because I say it every time, Chandler and I love to support our real estate investor community. That's a big deal. We love our peeps, and we always want to feature people that are local, that are helping the community, that are involved. And most importantly, we love to learn. I just cannot say how much I love to learn from people. And our guest today is a licensed attorney in the state of Georgia. He does most of the closings for me. His name is Quentin Moreland. Everyone, please get out a pen and paper. Quentin drops so much knowledge. You will want to be prepared for this. This is stuff that could save you millions of dollars later. And you're just going to go into your real estate investing a lot smarter once you listen to this episode. I cannot say enough. We just finished recording and I was taking notes. My head exploded about every 4 minutes. I mean, Quentin brought the stories. I do want to caveat that lawyers, they've seen the worst case scenario, and he's going to keep mentioning the worst case scenario. And it is scary. It's definitely not going to scare you from buying real estate, but that's their job, is to know what could happen and to set you up so it doesn't happen to you.
It's stuff you don't even think about either. It's stuff that I would have never thought actually happens, because you think you go through a closing, you feel so good, you went through lawyers. So yeah, make sure I kind of like how he says, do things on the front end to help yourself or protect yourself on the back end. And I think people need to take that seriously, especially it sounds like he sees it very often, fraud especially. So
yes, today we talk a lot about title insurance and we talk a lot about fraud. These are two very important topics, and these are topics that most people aren't talking about. Again, that's our job. We're going to talk about stuff people aren't talking about. I do want to tell a story to start us off before we bring in Quentin. I had a very negative opinion of title insurance for many years. I still, when I think about it, I've been in business for many years, and some of my businesses are real estate and some are not. And so completely non-related to real estate business, my husband used to have an employee, and lovely person, and this employee's husband was a closing attorney. This person would come in with different things that they had bought, and they used to brag about how much they loved closing day. They basically said that for this place, the title insurance was basically a gravy day for her. I don't know if he was self-insuring or what. I don't know exactly, but it just put this really horrible taste in my mouth for title insurance. I just interpret it as the attorney's using that as an extra, money maker for himself. But when I started buying real estate several years later, and I was always querying because of this, I had a very negative connotation. So I would quiz the attorneys. I was told many times by many different attorneys, no, I'm buying a policy for you. It is an actual insurance policy. I'll show you. He showed me the paperwork. So once I kind of educated on myself, I, kept buying it. They probably do make a little bit, but when you see what they can go through potentially, I kind of get it. So I do want to caveat that I think maybe I probably wasn't the only one with that opinion, and there are probably many of you out there. And this show is here to say, hey, let's look at it from a different angle and see what you could actually lose. Even though maybe you're losing some money the day you close, let's look at what you could lose later, that you didn't see coming. So this is quite the episode. I really encourage you to listen to it when you have some time and are not distracted, because Quentin gives a lot of great detail.
for sure, without further ado, we will welcome Quentin Moreland.
Welcome to Cashless Savannah for the first time ever. Quentin Moreland, one of my favorite people in Savannah. How are you today?
Hey, doing great, Julie. Hey, Chandler. How y'all doing?
Doing well.
We are great. I have begged you so many times to be on this podcast. I'm so excited. I finally strong armed you. Did I win an arm wrestling match or something? I definitely had to work for this interview.
It was definitely pretty tough, but you got me.
I did. Yes, I hooked you. You're a fisherman, so I'm going to say it that way. I hooked you just for an hour, but we really appreciate you being here. We have a very important subject today. As you all know, if anyone that's listening and watching this podcast and YouTube show, I should say, maybe, I don't know. But we love to keep it high level. I love to talk about real estate and I want to learn. And so I love to be around really smart people like Quentin. And so something came up recently, and I think that's what got me to hook Quentin is I said, Quentin, I just had a client use title insurance. Help, help, help. We need to educate people. And I've had this question a million times, which is why I really wanted to talk to you about it. I have a client and she was a buyer. I was her buyer's agent and she went on the MLS and she bought a rental property. And to my knowledge, there's nothing wrong with that. And I represented her. And now it's been almost 2 years since that transaction closed. And she called me early in the morning on a Tuesday and I said, "Oh, I wonder why she's calling me out of nowhere, you know?" And she said, "Julie, I'm being sued." And I said, "What?" I completely did not want that phone call, was not expecting that. Me not being an attorney, I never get that phone call. And she said, "Yes, I've been named in a lawsuit, and apparently they're accusing me of fraud." And I said, "What did you do that was fraudulent? You went on the MLS, you picked a pretty house, you bought it, it's now leased out to tenants who are happy. Like, what are we talking about?" And so she sent me the lawsuit. Unfortunately, I was familiar with the lawsuit. There has been a giant case in Savannah. Anyone who's involved in real estate is aware of it. There is a group of individuals in civil court who had, I'm going to use the wrong term, Quentin, but some kind of a judgment against them. I believe it is a $40 million judgment. But because they touched a lot of properties in Savannah as they were, they had raised money and then I believe rehabbed and sold a fair amount of properties. That's my understanding. And the lawsuit apparently came down with fraud. And then now they're going, because I don't think they were able to get everything that they had wanted in the judgment, they're now going after the properties and the people that have bought the properties, something like that. Definitely not a lawyer. Thank God Quentin is. So she was very upset because now she's been pulled in as the buyer of one of these properties. Well, I felt terrible for her. She said, "What do I do?" And I said, "Well, you're going to call the attorney that closed the transaction and you're going to institute title insurance." And she said, "Really? I have insurance." I said, "Well, did you buy title insurance?" And she said, "I don't know." She went and checked the contract. She did, thank goodness. And I roughly, Quentin can correct me, it was around $1,000. And I hear this all the time. Should I buy title insurance? It's $1,000. Yes, you should. And this is why. We're going to talk about this today. My poor client, she has one rental property, okay? And this is it. And she's now in a lawsuit. And that, thank goodness, on her one transaction, she bought title insurance. She's now being covered for the whole lawsuit. And she's so thankful. She texted me back later. She said, "I called the attorney. We're good. I'm so thankful." She's back to her life and she knows someone else is handling it. So Quentin, we have you on to talk about title insurance. We want to get to know you a little bit as well, but I want the viewer to know, like, we have a really important subject today. This is something that everyone needs to learn about and educate themselves on.
It's definitely important. And, thankfully your client had title insurance and spent a little bit of money that's now saving her a lot of money.
Yes.
If she had to go out and hire a lawyer to defend herself in this lawsuit, she'd be paying tens of thousands of dollars instead of the $1,000 she paid up front to protect her title. It's definitely important. I've seen it play out numerous times over the years. And I have a client right now who has an issue and we're working through. He bought a property a few years back, also rehabbed it and to rent it out or flip it, but discovered that part of the property is across the property boundary line.
Oh no.
A good chunk of the house. So he now has an issue that he can't get title insurance to sell the property because of this issue. But he does have title insurance for when he purchased the property. And there's different types of title insurance. And here's why that's important. Most people do standard title insurance. And that's what this person had. So it protected him for his purchase price, because your title insurance is up to your purchase price typically. And they figured out they couldn't fix this issue, so they paid him the money. Well, the problem is he's now put a lot more money into the property. Even though he got paid out his purchase price, he has a big issue to still take care of that he's going to have to now get fixed. Like you had a question.
I do. I'm so curious. So it was already built when he bought it. The house was over the property line, but he didn't realize it.
Correct.
And so let's say, I have no idea who this is, but let's say they paid $100,000 and then he put in $100,000. So he went ahead and filed a claim while he still owed it to the title insurance. You can do that?
Yes. So he wasn't able to sell it. So this came up when he tried to sell the property.
Okay.
And so he received his purchase price back, which it wasn't very much money. He bought it for $30,000. and it's probably trying to sell for about $200,000 now. Standard policy is title insurance company can say, well, here's your $30,000. There's nothing else we can do. We've paid out your claim, and that's the end of it. You can go out and get what's called an enhanced title policy, though, and that will cover you for a lot more things, and it's beneficial for a number of reasons. One, inflation. So it'll cover you typically for 150% that price. So you get a bump, but then also it'll cover you for, it'll defend lawsuits if you get sued. So if he got sued over that trespass, they would actually defend him moving forward. If a court found that he had to move the house, it would actually pay for that.
Wow.
And so it'll pay for structural issues. So if moving that would cause structural damage to the property, and obviously it would actually pay for that move and construction. It goes a long way. It costs about 10% more.
Okay, that was
than standard title insurance, which is not
terrible then.
Huge considering what you get for it. It's not for every situation. Here in Savannah, I think a lot more people should get it if you're buying in the city, because old city houses on the old city maps are not necessarily, don't have plats. They don't have recent surveys. You're just talking about meets and bounds, and you get a lot of situations where folks are over property lines. It happens constantly in the historic districts.
Yeah. Well, and those houses are built onto the property line. I've seen it in the sales. The houses aren't, there's no 5-foot setback in the historic district. It's on the line.
That's right.
Does the neighbor know?
The neighbors do know. They've reached out to them. Problem with this situation is heirs property, and there are about 10 heirs.
Oh, no.
And they can't all agree. So my client wanted to just purchase the property next door. Figure that'd be the easiest thing. We may still go that route, but the heirs property has not been probated. So big problems there.
Yeah.
It's going to cost a lot more money than an enhanced policy would have cost.
So Quentin, I want to take a step back. Let's just introduce yourself real quick, kind of tell people who you are, what you do, just a general background of why you're doing what you do, and then we'll jump right back into it. I know we have a ton of questions on this, so we kind of want to jump into it.
Yeah, of course.
I want the people to know kind of who you are and what you do. So
yeah, y'all. I'm Quentin Marlin. I'm a partner here at the law firm of Ellis Painter in Savannah. I've been practicing 18 years. I'm from Savannah, grew up here, went to Jenkins High, then Armstrong for college, and then Mercer Law School. Also served in the Air Force for 6 years. I deployed overseas a couple times, and really enjoyed that time in my life as well. Why real estate? I love it. I mean, I'm on Realtor.com every single day. I like it, and how I got into it. I started out as a litigator, as a lot of folks do in our firm when you start out practicing. And over a few years, you start transitioning into what you want. And we represent a number of banks. And back in 08, 09, and 2010, there was a lot of bank work, as everybody might remember, after the recession. And a lot of that work had to deal with real estate, mostly commercial real estate matters. That was my entryway into really getting into real estate. It was really on the banking side. So we were foreclosing on properties, we were reselling properties, and that got me into the closing of properties. So after we found our way getting out of the recession, real estate sales started increasing again, and it was kind of a natural progression from there.
Very cool. One thing I want to say very publicly, I can't say it enough, is that you've always been a big supporter of our meetup. And that means so much to me. We started this meetup with nothing and no one. I was kind of ready to close it. Honestly, it was costing me a lot of money and also time, but mostly a lot of money. You came in and helped. You were one of many that supported, and it just meant so much. And because of your support, I have gotten to know you even better, because I said, well, I'm throwing everything I've got at Quentin. If he's going to support me, I support him. So if you close a property with me or someone on Team 912 and we're on the buy side, it's usually with Ellis Painter, because we love you so much. And every single client goes, man, that attorney and his staff was so fantastic. I love hearing compliments, and I always try to pass them on to you, but I do want everyone to know what a great supporter you've been of our meetup. You've spoken, you attend, in your personal time. I know you miss out on time with your young children for that, and I want to thank you for that. Like, it means a lot. We love you so much in the real estate investor community, and we need to support each other and support people that do support other real estate investors. So we really thank you for that.
No, thank you for all your work putting them together. They're awesome. I enjoy meeting everyone there and just having the experience. Yeah, I've spoken a couple times and happy to sponsor. And beyond that, I like to just attend. They're always great. You learn something from the speakers. You learn something just from talking with everyone in attendance ahead of the meeting. It's really great folks. So I appreciate you including me.
Well, we appreciate you being there. And for myself, whenever I can bump into you, I always have a question about something I have going on. And I know other people in the meetup will be like, they'll ask me something. I'm like, Quentin's right there. Just ask him, because none of us are lawyers except for you. So we just so appreciate you. But that's why I went straight to you, when we had this title insurance, issue. So back on title insurance, I hate losing money. And I've learned the most when I've lost money. And I've lost a good bit in this business. If you're in this business as long as I have been, you've lost money doing something. And a lot of times it's on contractors and things like that. But it's way cheaper to lose money. I mean, not lose money. It's way cheaper to learn off of other people losing money and not yourself. So, do you have a couple? We love stories, Quentin. Tell us some more stories about title insurance. I cannot say enough, especially after my one client needing her title insurance. Give us some other stories. What do you see, like other title issues that come up? Because I think people just see it as a line item and they don't really understand what's going on in the background. And you, as the attorney, you're seeing all of it. And half the time, people don't even realize what's going on. I had another attorney tell me that years ago. I asked him about title insurance, and he goes, "You don't understand how many phone calls I get a year where they go, 'Hey, we've got an issue with blah, blah Main Street. Is there title insurance?'" And he said, "Yes, there is. Here's the policy." He said, "That's really about as simple as it is." He said, "But people don't even realize that there was a claim on their title because we just send it on through." So can you give us some examples of, reasons why title insurance is so important and kind of how the system works?
That's really, survey lines, property lines is a big one. And that's one you see a lot here in Savannah, as I mentioned. So it's really important, especially if you're in the city, because those lines are not great. But the other big thing we've been seeing is just the rampant increase in fraud. It's so prevalent. Probably something I'll talk about maybe the next time I speak at the meetup about fraud. And it's getting more and more savvy, and we're putting in more and more layers of protection to try to stop it, but it still happens. Fraud on the wire side, that's one thing, but on the title side, it's the imposter sellers that we're seeing. And it's folks who pretend they own the property. They contact a real estate agent, they list the property for sale, pretend they're the owner, and then sell it, and they get the money. And it turns out later, you get the real owner of the property shows up and says, "Well, what the heck's going on?" And now you got a title claim, and that money's gone. I mean, it's happened in Savannah numerous times. It's, recently happened to a friend of mine. I didn't close the property, but he told me about it after the fact. The imposter seller never showed up, was out of town, vacant land, and it has no debt on it. That's kind of your red flags. So you really want to start looking in those situations.
Interesting.
He made a title claim, but so he had regular title insurance, not the enhanced policy. Probably should have had an enhanced policy because of all the red flags there. Out of town seller, vacant land, no debt, and they're not showing up, for the closing. So, he put in a couple $100,000 to start construction on this property before the real owner showed up one day while he was out there and asked, "Can I help you?" And he said, "No, I'm fine." And he asked again, "Can I help you?" He said, "No, I'm fine." He goes, "Well, what are you doing?" He says, "Well, I'm putting in these footers for this home I'm going to construct here." He goes, "Well, why are you doing that?" And they finally came to the realization that there was a problem. It was a $600,000 problem.
So who kept the property? The last buyer, the actual seller, or the buyer that was defrauded? Who kept it?
The prior owner. So the sale was fraudulent. So the buyer made a title claim, got his sales price back, but then had to go pursue, and I think is still pursuing the closing firm to get the rest of his money. These things happen. Heirs property is another big one. You think you have all the heirs. Someone shows up out the blue and says, "I'm an heir as well." You didn't have a right to sell that property. You want title insurance to help you with that, to go ahead and take care of it. They're going to investigate. Is that person really an heir? You don't have to investigate. You make your title claim. They're going to investigate. Are they really an heir or are they not? And if they are, they're going to try to work on paying them off, get it done. If they don't accept that, then you kind of have another issue. But the title insurance company is still going to take care of it. You could end up in litigation, but they're going to take care of that litigation.
And would a will have served that? When you're speaking about a probate and multiple heirs, cousin Vinny comes out of the corner, 3 years later, had Mr. Smith had a will, would that have eradicated a bunch of heirs having a claim, or would they still have some kind of a claim?
No, a will helps. Someone can always make a claim. That's the other positive thing about getting the insurance. I always tell folks, Julie, I do a lot of business work as well as real estate. And people say, well, how can you, do this to protect me so I don't get sued? I can never stop you from being sued. Anyone can sue you for anything. Are you ready to be defended? Or, can you defend your position? That's what you're protecting. You can't stop the lawsuit. You can set it up to where the lawsuit is going to get thrown out of court, though.
So you're talking about enhanced title insurance versus just regular. When do you recommend buying the enhanced versus just getting the regular? Which ones? Certain situations, or just, it sounds like I just want to get enhanced all the time right now.
You do for 10.
There's certain situations. Yeah. So, high value properties, I think it's worth it. Recently had a closing with some folks out here who bought over on Skidaway, and they requested, it was a couple of lawyers moving down from Michigan, and they requested an enhanced policy. They knew that that's what they wanted. Probably didn't need it, but in their mind, they're thinking high value property. Out on Skidaway, the property histories don't go back that far, and the lot lines are pretty good. So, other than you just want to have additional protection for a high value property, ordinary title insurance is probably fine. But other places can have a more history for high value properties. You probably do want to get it. Older homes with complex histories. Just think about, as I said, air properties, old Savannah properties. I'll give you another example. Eastern Wharf. A lot of y'all are familiar with Eastern Wharf.
Yeah.
And
resident.
The original developers of it ended up being clients of ours years back after it went bust. This was representing a bank matter, though. They started, if you were around in Savannah back when it was started up before the recession, it was leveled out. They started putting in infrastructure, and there was a long pause. Well, that long pause was because there was an unknown easement running straight through the middle of it to the river, President Street to the river. The folks who had the easement, I know who they are, had it going back for generations. And it was so they could get down to the river, fish, get on their boat, do whatever. And it paused all of that construction for a long time until they figured out the payout. And that cost a lot of money and time. But that's another reason you want title insurance. The mansion, now Hotel Bardo, but used to be the mansion hotel. Richard Kessler built that hotel. There was a lawyer here in town. I won't mention his name. His family goes back to beginning of Savannah. They had an easement on what was just a corner of the hotel, and they knew it. And he knew it the whole time. He waited for it to get built and then said, what about this? And they had to pay. I mean, it was so, that's issues when you're title, but you want to have a good policy in place to where you, the owner, and I'm sure they did have policies, title insurance company had to go figure that out. Something got missed somewhere. People say, well, and all these things with your property lines. So if you don't get title insurance at all, if you're an investor and you're buying cash and you do not get title insurance, no one's going to review your title. I'm not going to review it. If you're not getting title insurance, I have no reason to order a title search. No closing attorney is going to. So number one thing you get is a title search, and you get a review of your title to figure out, are there any issues? And if you don't do that, you're making a pretty big investment blindly.
Wow.
I wouldn't advise it to anyone. I had a closing recently, they're under purchase contract. The person who professes to be the seller, and this was heir's property, her mother owned the property, had lived in it for years. Mother passed. It was in a trust. Mother was a co-trustee with her stepson. Stepson was going to sell the property. Stepson dies. So her daughter is now selling the property. I go do a title search, and I'm like, it's never changed over. It's still the name of the trust. We got to get the trust documents. So I finally found the trust documents, and there was a cousin, the stepbrother who'd passed, who was the successor trustee. So this person who was trying to sell the property did not have authority to do so. We then had to go find this cousin who was in North Carolina, in the mountains of North Carolina. Found him. Then he was in his 70s. He and his wife came down, and what we had was an affidavit of trust on the record. We didn't have the actual trust. We then located the trust, finally, hunted it down. It had been sent from the lawyer's office here in Savannah to Wells Fargo, and it was in their document repository. It turns out that the woman who was initially selling the property actually not only didn't have the right to sell the property, was also not a beneficiary in the trust at all.
Wow.
It was another person, another son of the father who had passed away before, who set up the trust. He had another son who he essentially had no communication with for a long time, but had left him as the beneficiary of the trust. So this whole thing got turned around, and actually this was the same folks who got the enhanced policy, the couple who moved down. So
Wow.
maybe that was part of it. And they wanted the enhanced policy before, but in this case now, with all those moving parts with this trust, if something did come up, that policy is going to cover them moving forward for anything that could arise.
Wow. You're saying the regular title insurance, you're going to get the title search, and then if you get sued, they cover, but the enhanced, it covers easements, and the standard does not cover located easements. Is that right?
Enhanced covers things in the future as well.
Mm,
So someone fraudulently imposter seller. So if you own the property, imposter seller came in and sold your property, pretending to be you, that enhanced policy will cover that. A regular policy will not. You also get the 150% enhancement of coverage, and it's going to cover, for example, with the boundary, if you need to move your structure for some reason, it's going to cover that. A regular policy would not. It'll pay you out that policy limit and then wash hands.
How do you stop someone from, like, let's say you have a piece of land. How in the world do you just stop somebody from coming in and saying, hey, I'm selling this?
You hear these commercials about title lock and all this stuff. Well, I'll tell y'all a secret, and it's not a secret, it's public record. In Georgia, you can register your name and to the clerk website. It's free. And if any transaction, anything on the clerk's website and your name gets recorded, you get an email alert. So you'll get it the next day.
and that can be an LLC name as well. You can register your LLC.
Any name, yeah. You can register any name you want. And then if there's a transaction, you get an alert. I have my registered my name. I get alert emails all the time because we'll file lease pendants and other types of recordings from time to time for clients, and I get an alert. But if someone were to try to sell my house or one of my other properties, I would get an alert immediately. And that's the time to go try to fix it. What you don't want is
Right.
this to happen to you and years go by
Right.
and you had no idea. They've sold it. And then the person they sold it to has sold it again. So now you have multiple bona fide purchasers purchase your property. You're talking about something very complex to unravel.
I have a very random follow-up question on that one, Quentin. And okay, just first question, clerk of courts for Georgia, you just go there and register and it's free. Is that the right place? I just want to make sure we're telling people where
Yeah, it is. Let me
we'll be
look
doing.
it up really quick, and I can tell everybody exactly where to go.
Chandler, this is both of our to-do lists today. We're going to clerk of courts or wherever Quentin tells us.
Yeah, so it's called FANS. So it's the Filing Activity Notification System. So if you go to, I'll just state it. It's fans.gsccca.org,
Got it. Perfect.
and you log in and then register whatever names you want. Registered mine. I remember registering my mother's name.
Yeah.
So if you have older family members, you might want to register their names so you get alerted if something ever happens.
Elderly get scammed all the time. Elderly. We were
And
gonna,
title lock's not doing anything different than that. They're just monitoring it, and you're paying for this service. Well,
we're gonna have this in the show notes for our viewers and listeners. We will put this in the show notes. This is important. Okay, so this is a random question. This is kind of unrelated and selfishly it's about me, but let's go with it. This is a true story, Quentin. It just happened, I don't know, 2 months ago. I got a call from Chatham County and they said I just got the voicemail because I was not answering, I didn't answer the phone. And she said, hey, this is blah blah with Chatham County. I just want you to know your property's going to tax sale on Tuesday. When I listened to the message, I was like, it's got to be spam or scam or whatever. But it was from a 912 number. It was from a Savannah number. And I thought, so I sent it to my CFO. I said, hey, check on this because I have a good portfolio. And she said, no, I just rechecked. You're good. And I said, okay, but I need to know. She goes, I checked your name. You're good. I said, but did you check the property address? Thank God I pushed on this. She called me back. She said, you're going to tax sale and it's this property. And I'm like, what in the world? And this is a true story, Quentin. And I wonder if this would help me. But worst case scenario, if it had sold at the tax sale, I would have known as well. But I bought the property in 21. In 22, I received the tax bill in my LLC's name. I closed it. The attorney changed ownership. There's a deed. Everything is done correctly with the county from his perspective. Because trust me, I called and yelled at the attorney over this. And then I felt bad about that. But anyway, he did record the deed and it was changed over to the LLC. For some reason, the next year, it reverted back to the other owner. I don't know how or who or why. I don't work at the county. And so the former owner, I take it, was probably trashing the tax bill because she didn't own the property anymore. But luckily for me, the only thing that saved me this house was that I paid one tax bill. And so because I was the last person that paid a tax bill, she had my information and she called me, the county, but even though it wasn't in my name, it was back to the other person's name. What the attorney told me, he said, Julie, you're so many years in on this that if you hadn't paid that one tax bill, you would have already lost the property and you'd have no recourse. Like after, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, you can't get it back, which really freaked me out. I didn't realize my team was checking the taxes for me, but they were just using the name of the LC. They weren't actually using each address. Let's say I lost the property to a tax sale. Thank God I did not. I had to pay a giant bill though in 5 minutes, but anyway, it's okay, whatever. But if we did lose to tax sale, they would change title over, right, to the new guy, and then would I get alerted if maybe I had lost a property that way? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so on a tax matter, there's a couple things. So you wouldn't get alerted necessarily right away. It wasn't in your name. If they went to bar your redemption, your ability to take the property back, they'd have to serve you. So they'd have to file that suit, that notice with the court, and they have to actually serve you. And then eventually they need to quiet title as well, but if they ever wanted to do anything else with the property.
Okay.
And that'd be a lawsuit that they also got to serve you with. So you'd get notified that way. It not being your name there's a clerical error there. That's hard to kind of get on top of, and stuff happens. I will say this: we have an excellent tax commissioner here in Chatham County who does a great job. And it doesn't surprise me that she or her office reached out to you. They really do they're not trying to take people's properties. And they reach out to folks before tax sales. I know they work with folks. People who can't pay it all, or like pay something, will take you off the tax sale. They're doing a really excellent job down there.
I agree. As a listing agent, I've gotten calls where they said, hey, you have this property up for sale. And, it's not my property by any means, but they go, hey, can you let the owner know it's going to sale on Tuesday? And I've had to actually tell some clients that, but at least they do make that phone call. Because if they didn't, oh, what a mess. This won't cover me, right, for not paying my tax bill. I'm just done.
That's right. No, title insurance, even enhanced, won't cover you for your own actions. And they would consider that type of thing to probably be your action. That clerical error issue might not be your action. I mean, you might have a chance with an enhanced policy, but at some point you'd be risking them saying, well, didn't you know you needed to pay something?
That's what the attorney told me. He said, whether you get a bill or not, you should know you owe taxes. And I'm just like, this stack, so that's why I have my team watch my back, because I know it's so much that I can't keep up with it. I like to know that anyway, you can't have enough people with eyes on your stuff. It's just a lot to keep up with. It really is.
Definitely a different scenario when you have a portfolio, the
Yes.
size of yours versus
Yes.
the average person with, less than a handful of properties.
Right. Yeah, that would be a little more palatable. A good friend of mine, David Green, I don't know if you're aware of this case, Quentin. It has nothing to do with you. It's not in Georgia, but he's been very public about this. I'm not disclosing any information, although I was absolutely, involved when he was dealing with this. But David Green has a very large portfolio, much larger than mine. He used to be I guess he still is a very famous podcaster. He's with Bigger Pockets. And so Florida had this glitch, which I hope they've fixed now, but apparently, he owned all these LLCs in Florida and he had a large portfolio in Jacksonville. And someone figured out that there was a glitch and figured out that he was also an out-of-state owner. We're saying a lot of things, over and over, which is out-of-state owners, they're looking for that. There are definitely ways to find that. And I don't know that they knew it was David Green, but they knew that this was an out-of-state owner and that it was owned by an LLC. So they kept going to his 60 or 70 properties in Jacksonville. And the guy was one or two at a time, changing his name through the state as owner of that LLC, or maybe as agent. I'm not exactly sure on the details. And this guy kept selling his properties and they had to go after him and get him back. It was a huge title insurance issue. Tell us more stories, Quentin. Have you heard, things like that? Like they had to arrest this fraudster at the closing table. They finally got him to get yet another property under contract, the attorney, and the feds arrested him at the closing table in Jacksonville. It was a very interesting case. And I was like this the whole time. I was like, how's it going? Do you need me to run down there? Talk a little bit more. Give us some more stories. Like title insurance is so important.
Well, thankfully, I've not had anything quite like that happen. With the one I mentioned earlier, I don't know that they ever found this guy, but, they were trying to. The other, I will say just the general fraud. The other big thing I tell folks, and it seems so simple, is wires. And folks listening here, investors are going to be wiring funds. Always, always, always call and verify. You'll get an email and sometimes folks just go ahead and send the money and it's not good. Always call whoever it is. So whether it's a closing attorney, whether it's an agent, if you're wiring money somewhere, independently get the number. Don't use the number in the email. Go find independently that number, call them, verify. We get it several times a year, people attempting wire fraud. It happens. They get
What fraud do you see the most? Is it title fraud the most or wire fraud? What fraud are you kind of dealing with?
Wires the most, because it's just clean and easy for the fraudster, right? They've gotten that money. That money has made its way overseas within minutes, and it's never coming back.
I can imagine.
Well, Quentin,
Never coming back.
we had a transaction together. It was several months ago. I'm telling you, as an agent, I tell people I'm not even giving you the attorney's phone number because I don't want my name drug in the mud or something to happen to me. They say you owe me $200,000 or whatever it is they're wiring. Your attorney is Quentin Marlin, and you will go Google his name and find his office phone number, and you will call that number on Google, and you make sure. And I had told my client that. And do you know, I don't know if you remember this, Quentin, I think it was last year, but I can't remember. Her lender's email had been hacked. Okay,
Yep.
nothing to do with myself, nothing to do with Quentin, nothing to do with the buyer herself. They hacked into the lender's email. They knew she had a closing, and 2 or 3 days before closing, I mean, they knew exactly what they were doing. She got an email with wire instructions, and thank goodness she called Quentin's office based on my instructions.
She
And
called and spoke with Kim.
she did. And realized that she had received and they looked just like it was her. It looked, I don't know if they impersonated you or the title company or the lender, but she was
I
about.
think they made it, and then they sent an email pretending to be us because there were emails between us and the lender. And since they were hacked into the lender's email, they knew where to send it. And luckily she called, and we don't even bank with that institution, nor do we have the amount of money yet that you need to send. We were still going back and forth with the lender to balance the CD. So, but yeah, I mean, she would not have, once she would have lost her money, she would not have closed because she didn't have the
Right.
funds to replace it.
It was around $40,000.
Yeah.
She was putting like 20% down.
Always call. Wire fraud is prevalent. They get into people's emails. Our IT folks send tester emails out, and we get a report once a month and to see who's opened the email, who's clicked the link. And I get that report and I send it around the entire firm.
Yeah.
And it's just a constant reminder to be careful. And they're coming into your inbox every day, and they're very, very.
They're good at it. Like,
Yeah.
I've been not scammed on not any wire fraud or anything. But I've been scammed. I was like, holy cow. I didn't think I could ever get fooled with it until I did. And thank God it wasn't like mine was small compared to a wire fraud or anything like that. So like, you think you can't get fooled until you can, because they're really good at it.
They are, and it's not. We're all used to the email that comes from Asia that's not spelled correctly, and send me money. I'm overseas. I need your help. Right? Those aren't very good. You get fooled by those, it's almost your fault.
Yeah.
Right. But I had a client a couple of years ago. They were dealing with a vendor. This wasn't a real estate closing, but still dealt with real estate. It was property management. And they elicited services from this vendor, going back and forth with the vendor by email. The services were completed. So these emails were legit. Within the same email thread was an email about payment. The fraudster on the vendor side got in there and got into the same email chain and sent an email from the real email address within the same email chain with the fraudulent wire instructions. They didn't call and verify, and it went to the wrong place. But it never dawned on anyone to think, well, within the same email chain, this has been hacked. You've been going back and forth with the person already.
And it's a subject that's very dear to my heart because of what my mother has been through. Talk about the elderly, Quentin. What advice do you have for people protecting the elderly? Because my mother got scammed. I don't even want to know the amount, but it's awful. But do you have any advice there, from what you've seen from the attorney side, that could help people? Because we need to protect people there are a lot of people that can't stay ahead of these guys. They're very intelligent, okay? And they definitely prey on people that don't know any better and that are bad at technology. Do you have any advice there from what things you've seen?
So one is that filing activity notification system we've told everybody about. Your elderly parent sells their property to someone they shouldn't have, boom, you got alerted immediately. At least you can jump on it. File suit, file a lease pendants, stop the property from being transferred anymore. Because what they do is they get one transfer, then they go transfer it somewhere else. Now it's harder to claw back. You want to stop it before it goes too far. So you're dealing with the imposter or the fraudster directly, not some bona fide purchaser who's innocent, and now you got a different fight on your hand because they didn't do anything wrong. The other is, when I talk about the imposter sellers, it's the same way of someone taking advantage of someone who's people go after property that has no debt. They've got to get a lender payoff. They know there's going to be a title search. They know it's going to all these steps they're going to have to go through. And it's just a longer process. So I think I told you this, put debt on the property, even if it's not real debt, get a HELOC. You don't have to actually take out any money. You can leave it with zero balance, but now there's debt on the property. And that potential criminal, when they're looking for where they're going to go after, they see that property with a security deed on it, they move on. They don't want to deal with that.
I'm really glad you brought this up because you and I have had this discussion over and over and over. And let's just have it again because I don't know that I've ever just been like, heck yeah, that's a perfect solution for me. Because of course, these questions are all about me. But my mother no longer has a home. We sold it. But let's pretend she did. I talked to you years ago when she did have a home and I was worried they were going to get it. Okay. It was her only asset. So we're talking elderly, but this affects all of us. But let's just say my mother has a home with no debt. Getting a HELOC or as an investment property, I have lines of credit on my properties, but they're not free. I mean, I got a line of credit. I got a portfolio loan a few years ago and it cost me $13,000 just to open it. It was expensive. They're going to do title work. I don't even know why they're going to charge a 2-3% fee to open, so I still, when I think that, but those properties do have liens on them, right? I have zero balance, everything you're saying. I have zero balance on the line of credit, but it did cost me to open it and it does cost me to reopen it every year because they do make you reopen that if it's not a personal home. So my thought for you that I had questioned you about a few years ago was, hey, what if I took out a lien against my mother's property, but I didn't really charge her a point or we just kind of paid closing costs? Or do you have any lower cost solutions? Like let's say Chandler had a property and I put a lien on it with zero balance. Like how could we do it that's efficient and it's not going to be $13,000? Do you have any suggestions there?
Yeah, and I remember you and I talking about that, and I said you could do it yourself. You could have a LLC, and so you could do it against yourself. If I had a property and it has zero debt on it, I take one of my entities, I draw up a security deed, and I record it against it, and I can put whatever number I want on there. Make it payable, under 3 years, and so that way you don't have to pay intangible tax. You don't want to do that. Then you got a recording fee, and if you're the cost to have me draw up a security deed for you, or if you don't already have an LLC, open LLC, you're now talking about a few $100 versus $13,000. So putting something on your, so that person who's looking to do something with your property says, wow, I'm going to pass on that. You're not the easy target because there's debt on the property. They see that security deed. It has a number on it. They know you can have up to that amount of debt. One way or another, they know they have to clear that security deed before you can sell it.
Great.
So they're going to move on. You're not the target.
So if I had LLC A, I could do a debt from LLC B onto that property, or could I do it from the same? You can't do it from the same entity that owns it. Is that right?
Not the same entity that owns it. So different entity, you can put a debt deed on it and it could just sit there.
I can't say this enough. Having someone like Quentin in your corner and paying him paying an attorney up front for something where you're planning ahead is so much cheaper than calling Quentin when you're desperate for help. That's expensive, unfortunately. I can't say that enough. Like plan ahead and you'll sleep better at night.
Completely agree. I'd rather help you up front on the front end and protect folks' assets. The back end is stressful and expensive.
Are there some other things that you would recommend to get on the front end to kind of help you out in the long term?
I mean, generally, yeah, you want to make sure your business structure is set up. So if you're buying investment properties, obviously you want to have your LLCs set up the way they need to be. If you're going to have a parent company, if you have multiple properties, having that set up correctly and just having a good team together. So, having a good attorney, having a good CPA is very, very important as well. And having a good business banker is important. Those three relationships are very, very important. They should all be in communication with each other. I mean, I have a team of folks that I use. I have a couple CPAs I refer folks to. I have a couple bankers I refer folks to, and we all work together. Having that team in place to help you out as you're getting started is key. One, they're dealing with other folks who are doing the same thing. Lots of investors. I'm dealing with lots of other kinds of business owners. I'm going to see things. You're going to tell me what your plan is, and I'm going to say, well, you ever think about doing it this way? Because I've seen this happen. Don't go down this road. I've seen someone else go down and mess up.
Quentin, let's talk quickly about LLC setup because recently it's come to my attention that a ton of my friends have you as their registered agent on their LLC. And I personally have never done that, but I think it's pretty wise. Can you give us a rundown? Like, what does that cost? What are the advantages of having an attorney as your registered agent instead of your own name? And what do you recommend when, I set up my own LLCs, but do you have any advice for LLC setup and registered agent and how we can work with you to make sure that we are, set up correctly? Because we do own a good bit of real estate. We typically own it in LLCs. So can you give us a little bit of guidance on that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely advise setting them up in LLCs. They're the easiest thing to do. People always ask, should I do a corporation? I'm like, you don't need to, right? You don't need to have the structure of a corporation to get the same protections. So the LLC is going to give you liability protection. You still set it up as an S corp, so it's still pass through. You're going to have the business write-off ability, all the advantages without having the requirements of an actual incorporated entity. Why have an attorney be your registered agent? Some people just don't want to deal with the hassle. Others want anonymity. Anonymity is a big one. If you're going to have a bunch of properties, you're going to have tenants, and then do you actually want them to know who you are? Some people don't, and that way they see my name as registered agent. No, I don't. I'm not the owner, and they have a LLC name, and that's who they deal with. And you can sign yourself up as manager. You can have someone else be manager for your LLC. You as the owner may not even be the person signing the lease if you have a manager.
Which part of that is public record? Is it just the registered agent or is it the manager or the secretary? I know they ask for different things do you have any advice on that?
For LLC, it's just a registered agent.
That's the only public record. Okay. And then
so corporations, you'll see
Okay.
CEO, CFO, and secretary. For LLC, you just see the registered agent. And cost-wise, it's fairly inexpensive. I mean, you're talking about several $100s, but to get it set up, if you want to expedite it, it costs a little more to expedite it with the Secretary of State. But we typically register it. We can do the operating agreement, especially if you have multiple owners. But even if you're a single owner LLC, you need an operating agreement. That's what you're going to have to take into your bank to open up accounts. And you'll need it for real estate closings as well. You'll need an operating agreement to show the closing attorneys.
And if we have you as a registered agent, would you renew the LLC every year or would we renew the LLC? Or I guess that's all negotiable, or because I know that's a little bit of a process as well.
Yeah, so we give that option to our clients. We are happy to do it every year. Jamie Kosman here is my business paralegal and big spreadsheet of renewals. For the folks who ask us to renew it, we just do it and send the bill, and it's pretty inexpensive to do. We just pay the fee, and you're paying for 20-30 minutes of Jamie's time. That's not much money.
No,
so,
I wouldn't think
and then just to take the hassle off and make sure you don't forget. Sometimes we have clients who do it themselves, and then we get notices that they forgot, and we have to remind them. And a lot of the times those folks eventually say, hey, why don't you all just do it? I keep forgetting this every year.
On that vein, I have a story and a question. Shocker. This is probably 15 years ago. When we buy commercial property, they're each in their own LLC. One property, one LLC. That's how we've always done it. So we started out in commercial when we first started investing in real estate. Would be the one paying myself, and it's a lot. Good gravy. It's not. It doesn't take a rocket scientist. It's just a lot of minutia. If anyone's never done it before, I finally figured out I hadn't paid an LLC renewal fee in, I'm going to say 2 to 3 years. It had been multiple years, and that LLC owned property. So luckily I paid it and I got caught up and everything's fine. I didn't lose anything, but my fear at the time, and I didn't have you to call. But what is your advice? Let's say I forgot to pay the LLC renewal on the state of Georgia. So the LLC actually expires. Like it goes away if I don't pay for ABC LLC for, I think after 3 years, maybe they take it. So,
it administratively dissolves.
So what would have happened to that property if the state had dissolved my LLC, but it still owned property? How could that have affected me?
The LLC would still own the property, but can't do anything with it.
So I couldn't have sold it if it had. Oh my goodness.
You need to reinstate. Yeah. Okay. You'd have to reinstate.
But what if, this sounds crazy, but this is where my brain went. What if someone else had gotten that name when I hadn't renewed it, or if it had expired or whatever? I know it has to go all the way through. If someone else opened ABC LLC 10 years later, would they then own the property? Like, what would I do then?
Technically, no. Yeah, you would have opened yourself up for a lot of headache if they were trying to do something fraudulent and took your name.
An expensive headache. Yeah,
expensive headache.
That scared me so much that I have meticulous lists every year that I'm crossing off. And
Yeah, I mean, you just think about it. It'd be very difficult if someone forgot and someone else opened up the name and then said, "Well, I'm going to sell this property." I'm just thinking if I get a title search, it's going to show this person owns this LLC. They're going to give me an operating agreement.
We're here to talk worst case scenarios. We're not here to freak anyone out, but I've been at this a long time. I've made a lot of bonehead mistakes. And luckily, I haven't lost properties, but you can see I've come close. Just me, just little old me. I've almost lost to the tax man. I've almost lost the LLC. Like, we can't have enough Quintons in our life. What do you think, Chandler?
Good information for this to have, or for people to have, like stuff that people don't think about. Honestly, it's like the tedious, boring stuff you don't really want to do. You just want to get the property and start rehabbing it. But this is like super important stuff to like know about, to do. Most people kind of skip this step. I feel like I wouldn't say most, but like some people probably want to skip this step because it's just not the fun step. But I think it's very important.
Yeah.
Really important. I mean, if you're an investor, you're going out there, you're putting in your time, you're putting in your treasure, protecting on the front end so you don't have expensive mistakes. I mean, we all want to avoid expensive mistakes.
Yes. And having a good lawyer like Quentin is an investment. You're going to put a small amount in, but you're hoping to save a large amount later, right? There's a possibility is always there. So, we have to think of everything as an investment and also a return on investment. And the potential return is unimaginable when you think what you could have to spend in legal fees. So, Quentin, I thank you so much for coming on and helping to educate our viewer. I cannot say enough. You need title insurance. And every time I buy a property from today forward, it will be with enhanced title insurance. I didn't even know it existed. Okay, final question, Quentin. Can I go backwards? Can I buy it now on properties I already own?
Good question.
Because
Short answer, I don't know anyone who's ever done it, but I don't see why you couldn't put a policy on.
okay, well, I might be calling you because like this is potentially huge. And just knowing for a small fee, we have easements, egress, all kind of stuff. So anyway,
Yeah. Yeah,
great.
I mean, it'd be just like a closing again, though. You put it on something you already own, the title company is going to say, well, new title search,
Mm.
go through the process because they're going to be issuing it from that day you get that new policy. So they're going to make sure title's clean up to that
An
point.
entirely new policy, basically. So it
Correct.
wouldn't tack on to my old policy. It would be a brand new policy. Okay, good to know.
Correct.
Right. Wow. Well, thank you, Quentin. This has been fantastic. I love to learn, and you've taught me like 400 things. What do you think, Chandler? Did you learn a couple? You probably knew it
Oh,
all.
plenty. I learned plenty today.
Thank
I
you.
always enjoy talking with y'all as well.
Yeah.
Always. Thank you for your support. And definitely let's have a meetup based on fraud. I will be scheduling that with you for the fall. Thank you for volunteering. I accept. We always love when you come. That's a great topic. Fraud, fraud, fraud. Get title insurance for many reasons. So thank you, Quentin. It's been a pleasure.
Thank
Hey,
you.
thanks, Julie. Thanks, Chandler.
We really want to thank Quentin so much for coming. He's very busy. His time is very valuable, and he gave it to us completely for free. Quentin did not make a dime making this show, nor do Chandler and I. We don't make any money. We're just here to give back to the community, and we enjoy speaking to our friends and other vendors. But I want to tell you guys, we get paid in thank yous and love and 5-star reviews and thumbs up from this community. And I happened to be at the closing table yesterday, and the main buyer was female and the husband was the secondary buyer. And so I was at the end of the closing table as their representative. So I was sitting next to the husband, and I don't know him very well. He's a very nice person, but of course my main contact has been his wife. So she was, talking to the attorney, and there's a lot going on at the closing table. And the husband, who I don't know very well, he literally turned to me and he's just out of the blue. He said, "Your podcast is excellent." What? I wasn't there to talk about the podcast. I didn't even know he knew I had a podcast. And I said, "Really?" And he said, "Oh, I've really enjoyed it." He said, "I'm about halfway through your most recent episode." And the wife kind of heard us talking and she goes, "Oh, I've been sharing them with him and now he's subscribed." And I want you guys to know it meant so much to me. I know, again, I'm not getting paid. Okay. I would love millions of dollars as a thank you. It's okay. But just him saying thank you to me, it just meant a lot. And I try to share that with Chandler too. And so I want y'all to know we really appreciate those thank yous. And we've been hearing more and more of that lately. And it means so much. And I want you all to know it's really spurred me to really be like, let's keep going. Let's do better. Let's get smarter people. And so when this giant lawsuit hit, I say, Quentin, we need you. We've got to talk about title insurance. And he came through. And I just, man, what a wonderful human Quentin is. And he does great work. I've been working with him for several years. I can't give him enough of a 5-star review. Like, he and his team are fantastic. So thank you, Quentin. And thank you, those of you who listen and also, show us some appreciation.
Yeah, no, Quinn's been very good about like just sharing knowledge. I know some people can be very closed in with sharing that or being like, "You got to pay me to share this knowledge or whatever." Not Quentin. He's at the meetups. He's talking. He will stick around and answer all the questions. Yeah, I've heard plenty of people give compliments like, "Hey, Quentin, he like gives some really good information." And yes, he sure does. But yeah, a lot to learn from Quentin. If you want more information from him, probably the best would just be to come to the meetup. I know some people that come to the meetup and be like, "Hey, I just want to see Quentin so I can talk to him." But yeah, I think the meetup's a great place. And then obviously I'm sure you can reach out to him as well. But yeah, we also appreciate y'all listening. I don't know who's listening or not. I kind of just keep going. I like talking to people about real estate, and I hope everybody can learn from the mistakes that you hear. You hear a ton of mistakes and we're learning from them, so hopefully you don't make the same one.
Right.
Let us know what topics y'all want to hear, and please like, comment, share it, and we will see you on the next episode. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Just to settle for style. Stacking paper, vision clearer than glass. Hustle game tight, never moving too fast. Fields of green, seeds of sweat I sow. Running numbers, watch the cash trees grow. Cash flow Savannah where the dreamers dwell. Get your hustle on, ring that wealth bell. From the dirt to the gold, every story's untold. Cash